This will be probably my most controversial upload here on the YouTubes, because it was interesting. My debate some time ago with Dr. Richard Carrier, I was asked up by the audience, what would I do if there was no God? And I said, sex, drugs, rock and roll, in a joking manner. And now I was raised in church by my mom. My dad has never been a committed Christian, although he, seems to be neither for nor against. Well, slightly for, I should say. But not a devout churchgoer by any stretch of the imagination. My dad's been to church maybe 5 times in the 50 years of my life. So once every 10 years, maybe, that I'm aware of, to be fair. But it is that few and far between. Not even the Christian or the Christmas and Easter kind of thing. He would not even go to that. But anyway, he made me go to church, kind of forced me to go to church. So I've always had that issue with me and Christianity and things like that. Well, when I had my debate with Dr. Carrier, I had mentioned in jest sex, drugs, rock and roll, smoking pot and drinking beer, stuff like that. Well, I happened to be at the end of titrating off of methadone. And I want to show some solidarity with atheists and what they have to go through. Because it's not really anything other than ignorance that most of us here in America, the way we're raised, the kind of Christianity that our parents are committed to is really not even, that's cultural Christianity. I say all this to say that getting off of methadone has caused me to utilize Delta-8, CBD. Now, I had some real problems with my body metabolizing full cannabis, marijuana, street name, whatever, weed, ganja. My body wouldn't metabolize it, and it would put me in this suspended animation. And so I was in a real mess last year. Nothing would help me except for other pharmaceuticals. I'm not going to take a pharmaceutical to get off of a pharmaceutical. I can titrate down. There's no way that cold turkey changed the substance that I'm going to survive that either. So I refuse to take any synthesized crap by Big Pharma. Now, because of that, I started using cannabis and drinking between 2 to 4 beers a night. I know that over 2 is not good for you as far as health-wise, but since it was either take a muscle relaxer or an anti-anxiety pill, pop another lorazepam or Ativan, which seems to be defeating the issue. Not to mention the fact that lorazepam actually really chaosed my brain when I was titrating down. And I had a real bad psychological experience about 10 months ago, maybe a year ago now, from the torture and into no relief. I would be drowsy, like at the verge of falling asleep, but never being able to fall asleep, kind of like an asymptote. I could never get to sleep. And it would be days like that until it was like, I can't take this, in the emergency room. Then there was some messing up with some dates, and then I had to go 2 days without it as I was titrating down, and my system had never caught up with the aggressive manner in which I was titrating. The doctors let me make really bad mistakes. which was to try to stop cold turkey, taking 40 milligrams a day. So I have not had a delightful experience at all. So the only thing that can help me is alcohol medicinally and cannabis medicinally. For those who are interested, since I am neurodivergent, I can't get high. If I push it, I can get a buzz, but I cannot get quote unquote loaded. I've experimented, that's between me and the Lord, not me and anybody else. So anyway, I have to say that because of the nature of Christianity. But let me just bring this on home. Let me land the plane. My dad connected watching one video, and then hearing from my mother. I showed her everything, I'm vaping, what do they call it? Concentrate stuff. Got my little machines and everything. Got a real nice one for, so I knew exactly how many milligrams I was taking it each time. I'm treating it like medicine, and treating beer, 12 ounces, treating that like medicine, keeping track of what I'm taking so as to not push it, because I'm already at a line for dehydration because of the titration and the sweats. I'm sure a medical doctor would not suggest I use cannabis and alcohol to get off of methadone, but they actually almost killed me in the first place, so why do I want to trust what they have to say? Anyway, I started utilizing these natural substances, and my dad started treating me like I wasn't a Christian anymore. He did that once before, back when I was 20, when I had a brief stint from a heartbreak before I met Tammy, that, kind of crushed me, went into a spiral for a while. But, nobody asking me how am I actually doing. But, no, accusation of backsliddenness. Because that is the mentality of my father. And so I totally understand the ignorance that you atheists are dealing with your family. And in a strange way, I'm still a believer, but I feel your pain of the rejection and the misunderstanding. Basically because I'm neurodivergent, but also because of the my perceived or my perception that I'm always thought of as worse than better. What I'm saying is the benefit of the doubt. Never given the benefit of the doubt in my relationship with my dad. It's always I'm the bad guy, I don't know why. Maybe because we clashed all of our lives. I know my brother's relationships are not as volatile, but they are volatile. No doubt about it. But mine is, tragically volatile. We got in a fight, not a fist fight, but it could have gone to that. But my mom stopped my dad from standing up. But that's still that kind of vitriol that's there in familial relationships. And I just want to say, as a Christian, you guys know where I stand. I'm friends with Paula Gia, Shannon Q. Matt Dillahunty and I got along well. One of my very best friends and musical cohort is a Christian who lost his faith, and now he identifies as an atheist. I mean, shoot, I identify as a pretty 12-year-old girl. Anybody can identify as what they want. But having said that, I think this movie on heaven is absolutely embarrassing. And Paul really I have to be fair and intellectually honest. Paul is right. There is no case for heaven in this movie. I have not read his book. I stopped after the case to give Lee Strobel's kids all college funds. I stopped after I read that book, so I haven't read anything past that. Boy, I'm cantankerous, aren't I? As I've said before, I am an equal opportunity offender. This is all about Stop the Stupid campaign here on the interwebs, and that includes both atheists and Christians. But I'm going to start with the Christian side, and I hope you atheists take care of the atheist side, because there are some pretty dumb dudes out there. Nakasuchi, sorry, I got something in my throat. Not very good, the kind of stupidity that's out there. And I just want to, I don't know who this guy is. I've heard of him. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to contemporary Christian music. Sorry, but I think they're the flunkies of actual musicians. I have no idea who this guy is. I am not at all. He's probably a singer anyway, which makes him not a musician. Just joking. How do you make a drummer shut up? Put music in front of him. There you go. Anyway, I don't know his story totally. I think I have heard of his name because my good buddy is a worship leader and a teaching pastor at Shelter Cove, Scott Grimm. I've heard the name before, and I have some opinions about musicians being worship leaders without being trained. That's a whole nother issue. I won't get into it now. But just let me say, I guess there's a reason why Paul's channel's grown so much. I was a subscriber to Paul's channel back in the day, maybe 5 years back, 6 years back, can't quite remember. Well, I don't know, maybe it could be 8 years back. I don't know. Anyway, no, it hadn't been sooner. I think he's had his channel 5 years, maybe? I don't know. Now I'm feeling stupid. I have no idea how long I've known Paul. But I knew him when he had about under 200 subscribers. Or it could even be under 20. I can't quite remember how many subscribers he had when he met Steve McCrae, and then I met Shannon Q and Paulogia through Steve McCrae, because Steve McCrae and I went to the Reasons to Believe conference a couple years ago and slept together at the condo. So Steve and I know each other quite well. He's got great hair. I've got greater hair, but I digest. But to conclude this, my finger's always hitting stuff. To conclude what is supposed to be a very short little recording that's had my ADHD moments, let me, in conclusion to my former conclusion, I think this could be my second or my third conclusion. I am an ordained Southern Baptist pastor. I get the first three in conclusion statements for free. The one I just said doesn't count. But in conclusion, I like to take an offering, but that's beside the point. In conclusion, Christians, you have got to stop this fideism that is in the church today. This notion that wish fulfillment makes it so. I believe that was Feuerbach's accusation of Christianity. And I think he used the reverse of it, that the belief that there's a heaven is not evidence against it or for it. Basically, that idea. So even if the entire world were Muslims and the rest were atheists and I was the only Christian, I would be the only one right. Which, strangely enough, is the way things are here on the inner tubes. You know, the interwebs, the inner of the tire that makes the world go round, where the tire meets the road. See, when I'm going to talk about practical applying of life, I'm going to call it here on the inner tubes on my tube. Because it's no longer YouTubes, it's my tubes and my intertubes. In conclusion, for the third time, listen to Paul and what he has to say here.
You know, sometimes I think there's a trope that gets trotted out that like, oh, well, like people choose not to believe in God because they just want to go do some sinning.
We want to live without God.
Yeah. I did not stay with God in order to continue to deny that which could be good for me, but because of legalism, to not do it. What happened was the Lord opened up my heart. You know, the first thing, my uncle, who was also addicted to methadone through a back injury as well, not the same, both of our backs were not injured the same way, but they were injured about the same time, and both of us severely. So, you know, my uncle went to my grandfather, who was a Southern Baptist deacon, afraid to death to tell him, you know, Dad, I got off of methadone and I'm using pot. And I'm glad that my grandpa said, good for you, son, whatever works. No, my dad said, Kenny, I know you're smoking pot now, and that's your business. The very statement itself is telling me he thinks it's his business by telling me it's none of his business. You see how that hypocrisy works? I'm pretty familiar with it. So it was always do as I say, not as I do. Matter of fact, my dad would even say stuff like that. You know, when I would point out he didn't go to church. You do as I say, boy, not as I do. Authoritarianism with no exemplary lifestyle that followed. I am a pretty broken person, guys. But anyway, my use now of cannabis and alcohol responsibly has nothing to do with my faith or lack thereof. And as I've said, I do wholeheartedly believe. I actually trust the Lord now than I ever have in my life, going through this scenario alone. Now, of course, that's subjective evidence, and I would never in a million years talk to an atheist and say, hey, you know what, let me tell you about my subjective feelings of warm and calm that came over me after groaning in pain. Our minds are capable of doing things like that, but just because they are capable of doing things like that doesn't mean that when those things happen from the outside, it doesn't delegitimize those experiences either. We have to be intellectually honest, and I have to be honest on both sides. But it is not a desire to sin by which people lose their faith. I almost lost my faith 3 times as a believer. And as I lost my faith, I did turn to alcohol and drugs again, which is probably what my parents, put together. But the problem is I had told them numerous times, this is what I'm doing and getting off of methadone. So there was some informed, or I should say there was some information given that was not taken, which made it, far worse for me. But it seemed like when I would be tempted to lose my faith, I would start doing alcohol and drugs again. And that was not what was my desire to do, but that was actually my self-medicating response to the existential anguish of the evil and the suffering that I was going through, which makes me very sensitive to the case for the problem of evil. So let me repeat, I am going to correct Christians that want to say, number one, well, the Bible says you already believe in God, okay? No. Slap. Don't say stupid crap like that. All right? Now I forgot what my next point was. Let's see here. Don't say God exists. No, I didn't say it. What is it? See, now that pressure. This is why live radio was so tough for me. But I've learned that it doesn't matter. People want to see you, even if you're broken. Some years back, I went to I actually took a course with the Trinity. And it had to do with leadership and the new kind of leaders that are emerging, which they call broken leaders, broken servants. Now, I've known that for a long time, but I never had the confidence that I could share my struggles with people and I wouldn't get judged, because I neurodivergent, which causes me to have feelings of judgment, and already I have a hard time receiving love. But that complicates everything so much more for me. And I lost my train of thought again. I keep on thinking about what I'm going to do after I do that. And it just simply has to do with, okay, I need to cover this topic. I'm going to try to just stick to Paul's topic here. I'm going to try. I'm a preacher and neurodivergent, so I'm going to chase bunny rabbits. Well, they're going to be jackrabbits. That's the kind of bunnies I chase. But let me just say, it is not for ethical reasons that people want to choose or be compelled by what they see in reality to come to the conclusion that there is no God. I do believe that there can be honest atheism for a time. Now, what that time is, I do not know. I don't know what each person is like. I have people that I know that were raised in such a circumstance where they were severely, authoritarian kind of parents raised them. My dad, my mom was, she only, slapped me once or twice across the face, spanked me once or twice. I usually got grounded, but that's neither here nor there. So I had that balance. Losing or coming close to losing my faith, I actually turned to drugs and alcohol for comfort, for peace and help from the pain that the world caused me. And, when I get to heaven, I'm going to say, God, was all of this suffering I've gone through really necessary? Couldn't we really have done it some way different, somehow, some way? Because, you're supposed to be running this show, and this seems to be pretty crappy from my perspective. Now, because I know God wants me to be honest with him and real, I talk to him like a father, an Abba father, a true relationship. Same way I'm talk to my Uncle Pete, or talk to my Uncle Bubby, or talk to my grandpa, a real concern. And I can be angry at God. He can handle it. Family members probably don't want to hear it. But there's lots of things that are catalysts for us losing our faith. For me, I will admit it was emotional all the time. And the only thing that held me in the Christian faith was pure reason. If anybody's interested in asking me about that, I have no problem answering that. Of course, it starts with the nature of reality. And as a good scientist, deducing from the nature of reality that it's composed and seeing that there's parts that go together and there needs to be a composer. Therefore, reality is composed of parts. I know there can be no infinite regress. So the composition of being itself is only in the created order, and everything that is must start with one whose existence is his nature, or his nature is to be, or it, or whatever you want to call it. I have no problem, the masculine pronoun, that is certainly a part of God's nature, but God is also feminine in many ways. Not in the sense of girly, but in the sense of motherly traits. And so we have aspects of that in Scripture. I would never use a feminine pronoun with God. No, he revealed himself with masculine pronouns. I'll call him he. But for the sake of common ground with an atheist, I will say it when I'm developing a provisional definition and in seeking to discover what we can deduce from the nature of reality, what is the essence of that which is the ground of all other existence. So, boy, I really chased a rabbit on that one. Let's finish up here.
We want to ignore God. We want to reject God. We want to live in a way that we know God would not approve of, so we don't want God to be part of our lives, and we
Totally not
shun
true.
him during our lifetime.
Like, that was not me. I really wanted to believe.
You chose to be separate from me your entire life, and
Yeah,
now
see, I think
you'll
his
be
problem was
separated
he
from me
wanted
for
to
eternity
believe.
in hell.
And the more I read and learned,
And he
the more I
tried
just
to
found it was
will it
difficult for me to
himself
believe.
without
We'll come
the
back to
ground
John's
of
insights as we're
reason.
about to finally get to the mere 30 minutes of the 2-hour.
Hope you all appreciate this. Subscribe. Put your comments in there. Did I go too far? Did I not go far enough?